Today, my friends, we are looking at Nike's Next Percent 2. And if you've been following along the channel, the Instagram, you know that I have been looking forward to these shoes. And you know what? I live in the United States and I have had an incredible time getting them. I was extremely frustrated on the day they released because it was like I spent the whole day just refreshing my phone, trying to get them, see if they were in stock. Credit card was already entered into Nike. I was ready to roll. I was yelling at Nike, take my money, and they just wouldn't. And so, I don't know how long it's been, a month, couple months, but I finally got my hands on a pair of Nike's Next Percent 2. And spoiler, it was worth the wait. So clearly, I managed to pick up the Aurora Green Chlorine Blue colorway. It is quite beautiful. However, if I had had the choice, I probably would have gone with the OG colorway, but I didn't. So this is what I have. And you know what? I'm actually really glad I got this color because it is just beautiful to look at. When it's on your feet and you're looking down, it's like your feet are in a little Tiffany box. And I realized that I actually do still have the actual OG. So to buy these in the OG colorway would just be sad. Anyway, we're not talking about these dinosaurs. We're talking about the new bad boy in town. So I'm gonna go for a run in these bad boys. So why don't I do that? Then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna give you the specs, tell you how they feel, you know, the whole dog and pony show. I actually had a really good workout in these shoes for the first run. I mean, brilliant, unexpectedly brilliant. I ran a half marathon, 13.1 miles or about 21.1 kilometers. An average pace of 6:36 a mile, which is 4:06 a kilometer. And that was race pace. I ran a time trial half marathon for the very first run in these shoes. You know how I could tell it was an all-out, a race effort? Because I was negotiating with myself the whole way. After a couple miles, I thought to myself, you know what, I'm gonna run a 10K, that's enough. Then I got to the 10K mark and I was like, oh, you know, a 10-mile run would really look good on Strava. That's a good test for these shoes. Then I started getting to the 10-mile mark and I thought to myself, you know what's better than a 10-miler? A 13-miler. And the only thing better than a 13-miler is a 13.1 miler. And thank goodness I had to work the day that I went out for this run. Otherwise, who knows how long I would have run for. But they performed surprisingly well. No, it wasn't surprising. They performed as well as I expected them to. There was not a surprise. Let's talk about specs. You know, the magic is all down here, but as always, we are going to start at the top. We're going to work our way down. Now, the upper is the only thing that has changed from the Next Percent. So it makes sense that we start there because that's the big change. Even though this is your money maker down here on the bottom, the changes are pretty good in the top. We have increased room in the toe box, which is absolutely lovely. Now listen, I've got some downsides to tell you about, but we're going to get to those in just a few minutes. The toe box has been widened. It is very comfortable. My feet just kind of splayed out. I didn't have any hot spots. A lot of the times when shoes are just a bit narrow for me, I do start feeling it on the outside. Is this the outside? Yeah, the outside on my little toe starts to rub on shoes that the toe box is just a bit narrow for me. Now this upper is just lovely. It has been redesigned. I remember I was telling you about the synthetic upper on the Reebok Floatride Energy 3. This is nothing like that, except it feels kind of synthetic. This is a lot lighter. It's almost transparent. When you put your foot in, if you're wearing a colored sock, you can see that sock through the shoe. It's just a bare minimum of synthetic loveliness wrapping around your foot just to hold this midsole on your foot to make you go fast. We do have these overlays coming around the front of the shoe which give a little bit of reinforcement. However, I think it's more aesthetic. I think it looks pretty nice having this different color around the outside, the toe box. And when we talk about resilience in a racing shoe that really isn't designed to run a whole lot of miles, it kind of strikes me as more of a marketing ploy than actual adding resilience to a shoe. Let's say on the very far end of the spectrum that you manage to get 200 miles out of this shoe. I would say the outsole is going to wear down a lot quicker than this upper will. Now that remains to be seen. Stay tuned to the channel because if for some reason the upper just starts peeling away or my toes start sticking through the upper, you'll want to know about it and I'll tell you right here on the channel. But for now, I think it just looks good. The heel collar is extremely thin. We have a little bit of padding just here on the outside. It kind of wraps around like a horseshoe. You wouldn't think that that is enough. You wouldn't think that that would be enough to hold your foot in place, but I am here to tell you that at half marathon race pace, for me, my foot felt very secure in this heel. The heel counter is rather rigid, which again is good. You want that grip on the back of your heel. The last thing you want when you are thrashing it for X number of miles is to have heel slip. Heel slip is bound to lead to disappointment. I didn't get one bit of heel slip. I got a great lockdown, and this padding, it just melted into nothing. It's only now that I'm looking at it, trying to explain it to you guys, that it does seem extremely minimal. But when it's on your foot, it feels fantastic. Another thing I loved, and I don't know if it's actually functional, it seems like it would be by looking at it, but these laces, the laces kind of have a serrated edge to them. So when you tie them, the little serrated nodules they link in together and they hold the laces tight. I always double knot, you should too. If you are some kind of animal that doesn't double knot your laces, let me know in the comments below. That is horrendous. You're playing with fire. These laces with the serrated edges, with the teeth that kind of link together once you pull it tight, they just made me feel really good. You know how before a race, you always untie your shoes and then retie them just to be sure that you've got them tight enough? This is removing the anxiety. Let's move down to this gorgeous outsole. My friends, it is a big chunk of foam. We have 40 millimeters in the heel, 32 in the forefoot for an 8 millimeter drop. And that's right, 40 millimeters in the heel. And just in case you were wondering, 40 millimeters is the absolute maximum drop allowed by World Athletics for road racing. And get this is just like an extra bit of information. The maximum drop allowed by World Athletics for track events, 800 meters and up, and cross-country races is 25 millimeters. So if you thought you were gonna put these on and go knock out a record on the track, my friend, it's a no-go. These are not allowed on the track. Forbidden, the forbidden fruit. Unless you're a masters runner. Then the maximum drop allowed on the track goes up to 30 millimeters. The benefits of being a master. But the real story is the full-length carbon fiber plate in this shoe. Nike was the first one to incorporate it. And you know what? There's a reason they didn't change it from last year's Next Percent, because it just works. Let's just go to the outsole. We've got a good amount of outsole rubber here, like an impressive amount. Obviously you want to save weight and have as little outsole rubber as possible. You also want to have some resiliency in a shoe. When you're paying $250 US for this shoe, you don't want it to be like a one and done. One race, maybe two, and you have to bench them. Nobody wants that. Good amount of rubber, very happy with it. Absolutely no wear after my half marathon. Thank goodness for that. We do have exposed ZoomX midsole right here in the middle and through the center of these two little rubber pieces on the outside. Nike just adds these two little pieces on the side for a little more protection. Because as I said, this is a racing shoe, and generally when we race, we are gonna be more landing on our midfoot to forefoot. And this shoe promotes that kind of running. The shoe kind of moves you forward in your gait, and it just kind of promotes you landing on your forefoot before it loads that carbon fiber plate and then pushes you off forward. It's a beautiful system to make you run more efficiently. When I tried to land on my heel, it was very unstable. And there were 2 times during this half marathon effort where I had to veer off course very slightly and then run over a median. Now, as I stepped up onto this grassy median running at half marathon race pace, which, you know, if you've ever run a half marathon, it's not the most comfortable pace in the world. I did land on my heel on the grass. And when I did, I just felt a bit of a wobble. I noticed that I landed towards the back. There was just a little bit of, not heel slip, but rather like I was wearing high heels. Didn't seem to support me very much. The next instance came when I had to do a quick U-turn around a median to run back just to make up my distance before I got home. I noticed that as I slammed on the brakes and kind of landed on my heels as I was rounding a corner, it didn't give me the best feeling of stability. In fact, unstable is the word I would choose. Is that a deal breaker for this shoe? No. Most of the time, we're not going to be making hairpin turns or jumping over medians during a race or during a workout where we're going to be wearing this type of shoe. But it's out there for you to know. You know, I was so excited to get down to the midsole and tell you about the plate and the ride and everything about them that we're going to move our way right back up, because there is one more thing that changed. Nike added a little bit more padding to the tongue. And when I say a little bit, don't think I'm exaggerating. It really is a little bit. This tongue is still wafer thin. And yet the padding is strategically placed, I would say. The shoe is incredibly comfortable to put on and lace down and get a good lockdown across my midfoot. This off-center lacing was just a treat and contributed to the lockdown, so the shoes felt really secure on my foot. But you know what? I'm glad we had to go back to the upper, because there are just a few things. The first thing is the toe box. The toe box just seemed, when I put my foot in and I was standing around, kind of walking around the house, the shoes seemed a little loose. Now, let me be clear. They didn't feel loose. They looked loose. When I looked down, it seemed like there was a little bunching of material on this heel collar right here. Because this padding, you can see that right there, because this padding is right on the back, kind of holds your ankle in a bit from this heel collar. Now when you look down and you see your foot in the shoe, you're admiring these beautiful Tiffany blue shoes, you can see a 0.5 centimeter gap between the heel collar and your ankle. And that's because this heel pad is kind of holding your ankle away from the heel collar. That went away instantly. I started running. This shoe was incredibly comfortable to run in. Really got no complaints about how it performed. I just wanted you to know my perceptions, as irrelevant as they are in the beginning. Let's talk about weight. Now this is by far my lightest running shoe. Like he says, in a men's 10.5 US size, this shoe weighs in at 7.44 ounces or 211 grams. It's pretty light. I often describe my heavier shoes as not being a skinny mini. This is the skinny mini that we are comparing it to. However, I don't wear a men's size 10.5, I wear a men's size 13. So everything gets heavier from there. But it's not all bad news. In my size, men's size 13 US, this shoe tips the scale at 8.8 ounces or 250 grams. Incredibly light for this boat of a shoe. Strange things happen when you're running at race pace and it's very warm and very humid. You start to sweat. How did this shoe perform after I ran in it at race pace for 1 hour and 26 minutes? Well, it did gain a bit. After my run, this shoe had put on 1.2 ounces. It now weighs 10 ounces or 283 grams. Now, honestly, I was very impressed with that minimal weight gain. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you know I've tested shoes that have gained 25% of their weight after just a short run. And I think the reason for this minimal weight gain is this very synthetic upper. It just doesn't hold on to the liquid. This was a fun one. This was a fun one to test. Thanks for staying all the way to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, if you like that I like this shoe, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. It just really helps my channel and tells YouTube, you know what, there may be some other people that like this. Send it out to them. I post new running videos at least twice a week. Be kind, be happy, run well. I'll see you in a couple of days.